What's up? Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the third podcast. Not the third podcast that I've done, but the third podcast where we discuss this, that, and the third. This is a new, fresh flavor with some of my friends, my old friends and colleagues, to do this important work, to engage in constructive dialogue, and help us grow and move forward. It's going to be a little bit of personal development, a little bit of culture talk, and a lot of bit of success, motivation, and development. We have to move forward in today's world. Stuff is happening. Elon Musk is buying Twitter. Crime is all over the place. My Timberwolves might actually win a series in the playoffs. The world is changing. But what we want to do is make sure that we're hitting you with quality content on a weekly basis. So welcome to the third podcast. I'm going to bring in my first co-host, Kai. Kai from North Carolina. How are you doing today, Kai? What's up?
Hey, Brandon, I'm doing good. I'm very excited about this podcast. I know we're going to bring a lot of fresh ideas, different thoughts, different perspectives to what we see trending in the news and in the social world. So I'm looking forward to all the conversations that we're going to have, and also the comments that people are going to leave us when they engage in providing their perspective on what we're going to be talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Looking forward to building this podcast out with you and this next gentleman, Aaron. What's up, Aaron? How you doing? Out of Virginia. What's going on?
Yeah, Aaron is my AKA, but I do have a real name. It's Aaron Simmons. So okay. Aaron Simmons out of Virginia. Hey, Kai, father of two. I got a college graduate in 2 weeks, and I got a high school kid about to graduate high school, then going to college. So knock on wood, think we're doing okay over here. But I'm saying with you guys, look forward to providing some constructive information to the people out there and some content. And hopefully the most important thing is we can provide some solutions.
Absolutely. And if not solutions, at least some strategies. Now, people probably wondering where we've been. The Jegna and the Thinker was something that we did. Me and Kai, we had the 9. We were working and grinding and getting burnt out and living our lives and getting married. And Aaron's buying half the country. We got all these
problems. I wish I
was. And we just had to take a break, but we are back. We're going to dedicate a lot of good energy to really advancing, like I said, where people are at. Like if you're paying attention, the world is changing quickly. We got all types of digital currencies. We got inflation. We got literally different types of wars happening all over the globe. And right here in the United States, we look at folks who look like us, and we're like, what the heck's going on? We keep asking ourselves the same question. What are we doing? What's happening? And that's not going to be only what the podcast is about. But we got to be honest. We younger Black folks trying to figure it out, developing families and communities and all types of things. And we got to have a place where we can have constructive dialogue and not just talk about relationships, not start arguing. I don't expect to cuss out Kai. I don't expect me and Aaron to threaten to fly to each other's state to shoot one another. But if he wants me to come to Virginia, I'll come to Virginia.
We're going to go eat. We're going to eat. We ain't fighting. We're going to go eat something.
And I like to eat. So that's good. But we, at some point, the narrative has to shift beyond that.
Absolutely.
I know it's entertaining. I know it's fun that people are getting exposed. But if I hear another conversation about divesting, if I have another conversation about Will Smith and Jada Smith's marriage, like at some point we gotta move beyond that stuff. And I don't know about y'all, but it gets tiring after a while. It's like, where do we go for good quality conversations and content where we can feed each other to move forward that doesn't tear each other down after, a month or two of content? I'm not here to attack any platforms or anything, but we got a lot of that going on. I mean, people are literally making channels based off attacking individuals. So I'm looking forward to growing our audience, building this platform, and let's have our conversation. Let's open it up with, can we survive the new America? What do you think, Kai? Can we survive? That's a nice, quick, and easy question for you. Do you think we can survive the new America?
With this new America, as you said, with inflation rates skyrocketing, we're looking at the cost of food going up. We're looking at rental prices going up. And tonight we're going to be talking about an article in particular, but what we're making, what the average Black family is bringing in, we are going to have trouble, I believe, possibly even feeding ourselves. And so these are the type of things that we really need to start thinking about and focusing on, that we've entered a space where there's billionaires, and millionaires, and we're now looking at people that are competing on a global level. And, we're still trying to compete with the community down the street or the county down the street, getting money and access to services for our schools, our communities. But now we're looking at where people are competing on a global level now. So I'm not sure how we're going to fit into a society where competition is now global and we're still having issues getting access within the country that we built, that we've been in for years. That's all quite concerning. So I think that we can make some changes and kind of steer this ship in the right direction, but it's going to take a lot of us beginning to really get serious and start having these hard conversations in order to start seeing some transformation.
Absolutely. Hey, Ron, what do you think, man? Can we survive this new America? You're the finance guy. Come on, you know the numbers, man. You know the numbers.
Yeah, can we? Yes. I think the more important thing is, I heard 19 Keys say this. He's a real sharp guy. And he said, Black Americans have the most access to the most information in the history of the world. We have so much access to everything, but we are the least executing people in the history of the world. And what that means is that we have so much access to information, but it's kind of like, in some ways, it's kind of fantasy. So where it's like we actually enjoy absorbing the entertainment. But as Kai had mentioned a little bit earlier, with the way wages are, and we might as well just start with the article if y'all don't mind, with the way that wages are. She already mentioned inflation. We have another article that's going to talk about specifically Black home ownership, how it's still lagging. This is very, very problematic. And I wanted to kind of discuss this article because I want to shout out another great content creator that does some really good work. His name is Diamond Dave. He's connected with Erica and the Classic Climb. They do some great work over there. But this states that nearly half of Black workers in the U.S. make less than $15 an hour. And if everybody takes out their calculators and they kind of multiply that and they kind of see how much that is, that's almost less than $30,000 a year. Brandon, Kai, I don't know about you. I was not good in math. Y'all are the degree people. I'm in finance, but I was not good. But what I do know is half is half. So if I have 100 people in a room, 50% of them, if they are a worker and a Black worker, are making under that. We're not even talking about household income. We're talking about the individual. I live in Virginia, which is the part of Virginia I live in is a metro, basically, or what we like to call a bedroom community. And you guys are familiar with those if you're in a big city of Washington, D.C. There are people that live here that will pay $350,000 to $400,000 home in sales price to purchase a home so they can drive to D.C. for a job that pays them $80,000 to $90,000 or six figures or up and things of that nature. That's an hour and a half drive every single day. For those people, what are those people that are making these incomes? Where are they living? What if they're able to purchase a home, which is really, really important to our community? We're going to talk about the wealth gap in different shows. What that looks like. Do you even have the ability to purchase a home? This is something that I know Brandon's going to talk about. I have another podcast and radio show I do, and I made the joke that, listen, you guys better start getting into some healthy relationships if you even want to start creating some generational wealth. And people's like, are you telling me I got to get married or whatever? I said, no, I ain't telling you that. But what I am telling you is that when you see wealth in families, you don't see a lot of single people. That might be for the internet. But, yeah, Brandon, am I lying?
Man, no, that's pretty accurate.
You don't see a lot of single people. Even when we say, let's go back to Kemet, right? Let's go back to Kemet. Those were dynasties and families. They were children. They were husbands. They were wives. They had offspring. So we're talking about family income. Well, in order for you to have family, you cannot have an individual mindset. You can have partnerships in marriages or relationships. You can have partnerships with family. But in my opinion, Black Americans specifically, I can't talk about anybody, but Black Americans, we have become so individualized that we no longer even value family and relationships. And if you look at the numbers, it also shows, because everybody out here is not a boss. everybody out, based upon the numbers, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the numbers are not adding up to where we are specifically as a culture. So things talking about developing skills, getting into different aspects of, like, for example, my son is looking into cybersecurity, I'm in finance, all these different areas to where, as Kai started, we can compete globally in different places. The world has changed. You can work anywhere. So we just got to be honest about where we are. And sometimes it's not pretty, but if we're talking honestly, we can start to develop some constructive solutions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you think about when you see this article or hear about even just the fight for $15 an hour, Kai? What does that mean to folks that look like us?
It's so concerning because reading this article, there's a story of a woman sharing how many hours she works, and I believe she has a son. And she, packs up the lunch, gets him off to school, and I'm thinking, when is she with her child? When is she spending that quality time with her son and other people that are in this type of position that are working 2-3 jobs? And obviously you have to work to provide, but we have to also talk about who's there to provide that emotional support, who's laying the foundation for these children, who's guiding them. Are they being guided by social media, what they're seeing on television? Who's providing that type of structure that's necessary? And that's the other part that's concerning, is that this is a domino effect that we're going to see if we don't have family structures. I think what Aaron was saying is so important. Everybody wants to be a boss blank. That's not realistic. We got to get real about the position that we're in, and we need family in order to do that. We cannot go out here and try to do it by ourselves. Other groups look at this as a collective, looking at how do we come together as a community to pass policies, legislation, how do we build together? And we are the ones that have really bought into this idea of individualism. And we can see from this article and other reports that we will be discussing in future episodes that this is not working for us. And so for us to keep doing something that's not working, that is insane. So it's time that we start definitely making some changes. And I just want to add too, part of what I do is provide continuing education credits for social workers, substance use counselors, and much of what I do is geared towards the older adult population. And we talk about, the high prices, the increase in costs of healthcare and how that's skyrocketing. And so another part of this too, we have aging population. Our baby boomers are getting older. Mm-hmm. Who's going to take care of them? Are you going to be able to take care of mom and dad getting paid $15 an hour? That's the reality of our community, where we don't really have a baby boomer. Like, our parents can't gift us thousands of dollars. Usually Black folks in our age group are helping our parents pay bills. So what's going to happen to our parents are getting older? What's going to happen to them? How are we going to be able to help them, help ourselves, and provide for our children? So this is extremely concerning. And I think that what Aaron said is spot on. We have to begin to look at this as a community effort. We can't look at this as, I'm gonna get the bag, I'm gonna get mine. That does not work in the type of America that we're headed into, or that we're actually in at this point.
Yeah. Can I add something, Brandon, to what Kai said real quick?
Yeah, go for it. You're gonna ask, just hop on in, man.
Oh, okay. No, so especially when Kai talked about something that a lot of people are not thinking about, and I think those of us on this call, if we still have our parents here, that has become a real reality for me. In the last couple of months, my dad had a slight health issue. Shout out to the rep. He's rolling. But they actually did something that a lot of Black families didn't have the ability to do, is that they were able to, through working, have their finances and things of that nature in order in case a catastrophe happens. So they have their will, they have their trust, they have their assets here and things of that nature. So they've done, okay to take care of themselves in the retirement. Guys, I'm in finance. I'm a mortgage advisor. I talk to people every single day. You'd be surprised at the number of calls to where it says, I want to get mama in a home. But not only is the cost of the home expensive, the quality of care is terrible as well. So not only can they not afford it, but if they can't afford it, they don't have the proper care. They don't have the right kind of home health aid. Or it might be we can't do 24 hours. And Kai knows this. We can't do 24-hour care. They're only there part-time. So now you have somebody that's making $15 an hour have to cut their hours back and now to care for an elderly adult. But here's the alarming thing. And Brandon, I wanted you to talk about something about this. Poor people cannot take care of poor people. Mm. And then, as we're going to get to Basement's question, when they do, what does that start to look like? What does that start to look like? It's a toxic environment, because when people don't have resources, when they're living in dysfunction, can you imagine what happens to the elderly person? Do you think that they're going to be the number one on the priority list? How far do they fall back? So this is all this stuff. Economics is something that we're scared to talk about. And I think one of the reasons, and we have to be honest about it, is because we kind of know where we are as a group. And that's also, I think the individualism is almost like a reaction to not wanting to see. If you're a boss and you can stick your chest out by yourself, you feel good. But when you have to, when everybody has to stand up for the stage as a group, you want to start to separate yourself from those other people. As a community, we can't do that. We don't look at it as our schools. We look at it, those are bad schools. We do that. Those are not my kids.
Gymnastics.
Yeah, it's like, those are not my kids over there. But guess what? We're all affected by it, man. So it's just a big pot of gumbo that's a hot mess, B. Just a hot mess.
Man. Yeah, I think talking about generational wealth makes us feel good. I mean, it does. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, there are folks who do have that are Black, and those folks typically disconnect from their families. So to be honest, and I've seen this even here in Minnesota, we have kind of the bougie community. They live in a particular suburb that I will not name because I see some folks in the chat that are from here. And I don't know if they live in that community, but they will just kind of stay in their own circle. Like the family members that kind of got on, did their thing, they will associate. Now, sometimes they will help, but sometimes they just kind of stick to themselves and do their own thing. And I get that part too, because part of that is just like they can't, in order for them to maintain their level of wealth or whatnot, they can't keep trying to help the other folks, because those other folks ultimately end up either bleeding them out or jeopardizing the things that they have. I mean, it's kind of like what, I don't know if folks have been watching the new Bel Air series of the new Fresh Prince, but that's kind of being depicted in that show, is some of that success being jeopardized by bringing somebody like Will into the home. So, generational wealth, it sounds hot. It's good to hear on your favorite podcast and all that good stuff. But what does that really mean for us? Because generational wealth means that you're doing things in your community that shifts and molds institutions. It's not just you getting money individually. Like, that's why Elon Musk just bought Twitter. People think he bought it so we can let Nazis on Twitter. That's not, like, we're so damn short-sighted. It's like, that's not why he bought Twitter, people. Like, he bought Twitter because it's a power move. You need to control the narratives. It's about control, access to media. Twitter is the media right now. And for him to not only buy it, but the way he bought it, that's another thing we don't talk about. The way he bought it, he forced them to sell Twitter to him. He paid over $12 billion for what the regular asking price was. Like, that's crazy. Now, do I think we're going to have Elon Musks that look like us? Not necessarily, but we need to be at least on that type of level of thinking where we start to shift and shape our communities. Because if somebody can have that much wealth to buy a platform like that at that price, think about if you are just, let's say you got $20 million, you can shift and shape your community. Mm-hmm. You can literally shift and shape the school board to make sure that the public schools in your community have everything they need just with your wealth alone. Because you know why? Because people want to talk to you because you have money. They want to get you to come on the boards and be a part of this and donate to this campaign. That puts you in a position of power. But we don't think like that. We think about being attacked and being victims. And I think that's scary. So yeah, it's the generational wealth conversation. It blows my mind sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to hear nothing about no boss chicks or I'm a CEO or any of that when we're looking at articles that say half of Black women in the United States are making $15 or less. And we ain't talking about the chicks on OnlyFans. We talking about every other day black woman, okay? This is scary, man. I don't want to hear about no high value men either. This is why they after all the high value men. They broke. What are we talking about?
I think what
go ahead, Kai. Go ahead. No, go please, Kai.
I think what you said, Aaron, when you said that we live in this fantasy world, and I don't know, Brandon, you could speak to this more than I could, but I don't know if this is the trauma that we've experienced. And I know we don't want to just kind of lean on that. Like there is a point where we have to start the healing process and move forward. So I'm not sure if it's that, but we have made up our own reality, and I don't know if we do that because we can't handle what's really happening, but we are just so distracted. Right now we're distracted by Elon Musk, or we're distracted by whatever's happening with in sports, and I'm not saying those things, you need an outlet. I'm not saying all the time you're always on, but so much of what I see is for content creators, and what I see we are sharing on social media, it's things of no consequence. And that's concerning when we're in a community that's literally falling off a cliff. And we're just still out partying like nothing's going on. And I don't know if that's a trauma response, but we gotta start moving forward. We have to start changing our approach to living in this new America.
Yeah, another thing, I'm gonna get a little more serious, because another thing that's important is to pay attention to automation, because just like this article, as these folks are literally fighting for $15 an hour, those are the jobs that are easily replaced by robots. And as someone who runs an organization, if I can pay $15,000, $25,000 to get a robot to do a person's job, I'm going to do that, because I'm probably going to pay that person, if it's at that entry level kind of pay, they're probably going to make $32,000 a year, which means I'm really paying like $50 because I have to pay for their insurance and all that. Why would I do that when I can just pay $25, get a machine, and just get the machine software updated every year or so? That, to me, that makes more business sense, but we don't think like that. And then we want to say it's white supremacy and racism, when really it's just technology and where people are at. And if we ain't going to keep up with it, we can't keep playing victim. Like, we got to pay attention. And there are opportunities within that too. I know so many programs just in my state alone where they're begging for Black folks to come to their programs and get these certifications in all type of tech jobs. And we just ain't going, because we just don't have a concept for that type of work, because it's just something that we don't find desirable. It's not cool. It's not something we find interest. We don't have any idols or role models who do it, so we back out of it. Now, some folks do take those opportunities, but a lot of us don't, and we're gonna get left behind, unfortunately. It's scary.
You know what's interesting, Brandon, when you say that. I was driving the other day and I was thinking, sometimes I used to wonder why older black parents, my parents and other parents, were pushing so hard. Like my dad's grandma was like, look, you are going to get a college education. Like, this is non-negotiable. You're going to go to school. It doesn't matter how it happens. And when I started to think about it, I said, man, my grandmother had my father told me, a third grade education, man. And then her husband had a sixth grade education. But what they did know was that this world is changing. And my granddad used to work in a factory, and my grandma was a housekeeper. And they said, well, you guys are not going to be able to survive doing what I am doing. That's like a level of foresight from people that did not have a lot of education. That's a level of foresight. So they're saying, look, this is what y'all need to do. I don't know anything about that world, but I know you cannot come back to this world. And I think sometimes we haven't adapted properly, even to communicating what the world is going to look like. Brandon and I have talked about it previously. You need to be open to listening to your kids talking about making money on TikTok or being digital and things of that nature, because they have a level of grace and to see things a little bit better than you might be able to see stuff right now. This is their world. Automation, technology, what's this whole thing? Being a digital nomad. I have the opportunity to be a digital nomad. I can work anywhere in the world at this point. This is something we should be talking to our kids about specifically? Because the world is changing. It's changing every single day. It's a fantasy. And Mr. Fuller said it the best, being serious about not being very serious.
True. Could I add what you said, Aaron, I think is so important when you said basically the elders in the community were telling the next generation coming up, this is what you need to do. And it was so funny because I was having this conversation with my husband. I was like, people that are our age, so I'm in my late 30s, and so we should be sharing information to the group, to the next generation coming up, imparting knowledge into them about this is kind of what's going on, because we should be seeing what's going on along with what they're seeing, right? And then we have that open dialogue. But unfortunately, it's so much of the folks that should be providing that information are doing the same thing that the younger generation are doing, which when it's, let's say, not such constructive behavior. So there should be some maturity that has come through lived experience of like, listen, learn from my mistakes. And this is what I see that's on the horizon. And I want to set up the next generation to make sure that you're prepared for it. That's what you were saying, that your the elders in your family were showing, like, listen, this is what you need to start preparing for. But I remember that I follow Gary Vee work. He does a lot of work in marketing and social media. And he was saying that there's been this shift where now the people that are like in their 30s and 40s, their behavior is now like folks in their 20s. And then, so instead of getting that type of wisdom, we have like the 30 and 40 years old who are doing the same thing as the 20 years. So there's no one in there who is that elder that's saying, okay, wait, have your fun, but this is what you need to be preparing for. This is what's coming up next. And that is another thing that's concerning, especially in a community like ours that is so vulnerable.
Hey, Brandon, do you think, based on what Kai says, so the generation gap, because I heard Chuck D say this, he said this is the first generation, he was talking about hip hop, to where the kids and the parents are listening to the same artists. So my son is upstairs listening to Jay and I listen to, you know what I'm saying? To where they listen to the same artist. Do you think that the younger people don't think that they'll have the same outcome as older Black people, and that's why they don't want to listen?
Absolutely. They don't even have the same mindsets now. So I don't think that they would believe that the outcomes are going to be anywhere near the same. One thing that we're seeing, this is across ethnic groups, is in the workforce right now, that most young people only stay in the job less than 2 years. It's not even a full 2 years. It's like a year and like 8 months. And then they're on to the next gig. That is not our parents' generation.
Right.
They were go to school, get a degree, get a good job, and pray to God you can
stay
get a
where
pension.
you at, right?
That is that's not the mindset. And then a pension, if you can get a pension, right?
Right. That's not the mindset, but that's also not the economic environment either. Absolutely.
Right. But now, I mean, and honestly, I would say that's more of a millennial thing. The generation behind us, like your children, their generation is what gigs am I going to do to fit my personality and style? So that means I might have my YouTube, I might have my Instagram page, I might have a YouTube channel, I might do DoorDash, I might start a food prep business. They might be doing like 5 different things. And guess what? They enjoy doing all 5. So when you ask them what do they do professionally, they give you a whole laundry list of things. That's their style. And that's acceptable. And honestly, I think that's going to be the status of many of us, because we're not just competing with people. I keep bringing up AI because it's so important, because I don't think people really know, unless you're in these spaces, what this technology can do, or if you're just like paying attention. When you talk about things like SpaceX, like some of that stuff, or Neuralink, some of that stuff should scare people. But see, it goes over your head. But if I go talk to a 14-year-old who knows who Elon Musk is, he's glued to it, or she's glued to it. They know exactly what that is. Right. Or if I sit down, even just something like Fortnite, people are making a living playing Fortnite. Little kids. Sometimes I'm doing tech stuff, or I might be setting up a computer, and I go to YouTube and I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And it's like a 9-year-old Indian boy telling me how to work the computer. I was like, what is going on? And I'm sitting here like, what is it? I swear to you, I'm not even joking. I got a PlayStation 5. So I'm playing the PlayStation, and I couldn't figure out how to do something on NBA 2K. So I went to YouTube and I just put in how to, I think it was like how to set up like to trade like one of my players or something. And it's a little white dude. This boy could have been no more than 10 years old. He's listening to Future and Young Thug and everything in the background. It's like nigga this, nigga that in the background. And he's just telling us how to play the game. And I'm like, dude, this is so. And you can hear his mom's like kind of in the back doing something. She's on the phone. And he's just recording himself. Oh, yeah, I'm playing 2K. I'm about to make this trade. This is how you do this. And I'm just sitting there like, here I am, 35 years old, still playing 2K. And I got this little white kid from middle of nowhere, Minnesota, or not even Minnesota. He's middle of nowhere, America, telling me how to play, listening to music that I probably should be listening to.
Right.
We are in a different world.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, and if you're stuck in this victim, woe is me mentality, this world is moving, and it's moving quicker than it was 5 years ago. So, and we're starting to see a shift take place, I think, culturally, where being this victim is not going to work for you much longer. This whole white supremacy's hold me down stuff. Yeah, white supremacy is real, but in this world, there's some ways to kick white supremacy in the face. And if you ain't getting active, you are going to get the punishment of just where this world is going. And that's my warning to a lot of people. Is like, you got to pay attention. Yeah.
Agreed. 1,000% agree. I'll just tell a quick story. So my youngest son came into my room like maybe 2 weeks ago. He was like, Dad, I want to show you something. And I'm like, all right, Tyler, what you got to show me now, right? He had $70 that he made in his account from TikTok.
Yep.
And I was just sitting there blinking like, wait a minute. So time out. I just want to make sure I understand something. You've been posting videos every day. You going to school. And they paid you money. And he said, yeah. I said, bro, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it.
Keep doing it. Even if it's $70.
Right. Now he's 18. He's 18. And I know the content ain't crazy, nothing like, but I'm just like, yo, he figured this out himself.
Right.
The only thing I taught him, and I'll take no credit, was that you've got to be as creative as possible. So he wanted to try real estate like I do. He wants to try finance. He's like, I might have a cutting grass or something like that. But he just says, okay, I see my dad trying things. I've got to be creative and try things. I may not know everything. And as parents, you guys know, we don't know everything. But if we could just institute a spirit of trying, they'll just do all this other. Even Brandon, in the beginning, he was showing me some stuff that his daughter was some great artwork. And I'm like, listen, she's young. She's a beast. You know what I'm saying? So they got it. They need us to just give them some direction. So anytime you see kids doing that stuff, that is impressive and it's important. It's impressive and important.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So true. And I just wanted to go back to when we were talking about the AI. I think it's Common Sense. He has a YouTube channel. He does a lot about cryptocurrencies, but he also has a lot of posts about this AI technology. And so I would definitely check out some of what he's showing with the robotics and all of that. It's concerning because it shows you how a lot of jobs are going to be replaced. And as you said, Brandon and Aaron, many times those are jobs that people in our community have. And so the future is here. It's just the process of starting to roll these things out. And that's starting to happen. So this is the America that we're going to be living in, where a lot of things are going to be done by AI. We even have that with some talk therapy, where you can talk to a bot if you need someone to talk to. And a lot of our kids are getting used to that, right? They're getting used to texting and not speaking to anybody on the phone. Right, so you're kind of already programmed that, this is a healthy way to communicate whatever you're going through, chatting with a bot. So this is the world that we are living in, and we're being programmed to live in. So we as a community, we have to make sure that we are prepared.
Hey, Brandon and Kai, can either of you guys answer Baseman Awakens' question? Because I think that's an important one coming from the wellness space and also the mental health space. So why don't one of you guys attack it? How can you value family and relationships when so many people in our community are toxic?
Mm-hmm. You want to take it first, or you want me to take it, Kai?
Oh, man. I'll go first, because Brandon come knock it out the park, and I come on with my little thing.
Don't let him do that. You got this, Kai. You got this.
Brandon dropped the mic, and I said, "Well, but yeah, I think we have to set up proper boundaries and going to, as Aaron brought up Neely Fuller. He says a lot of times as Black folks, we have to limit our interaction with each other, and that, unfortunately, that's just what we have to do. We have to limit our interaction, and not saying that you have to be an island unto yourself, but you have to manage how much time you're spending with others in our community, because we're not healthy. And even though many of us are going through therapy and we're doing the work, but we still are in an environment that isn't meant for us to be well. So it takes continuous work, continuous energy and effort working on ourselves. And that can be exhausting. It can be draining, because especially when it feels like, am I the only one doing this work?
Right.
Is anybody else doing it? But in saying that, I think that it is important that, unfortunately, we'll have to limit interaction with members of our community, because you're striving to be the best that you can be. And you don't want to end up kind of regressing because you're trying to keep relationships of family members that are not moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon?
I'm just gonna follow you, Kai, because you went straight to where I would go. Is we have to define what our individual boundaries are. Now, I know we talked about how individualism per se has harmed us, and the reason I think it has is because of part of the question. It's part of that individualism has been a trauma response to feeling better, not actually functioning better. And when you want to function, you have to actually do things to actually have a better outcome in life per se, not just feel good. And we have grown custom and developed culture around feeling well. So when you set up boundaries, we don't set them up appropriately. Now, we talk about boundaries, but people don't often define it. So this is how I define boundaries. It's the expectation that I have for people to treat me and how I expect to treat myself. If you can answer those two things, you have set boundaries. Now, most people don't know what their boundaries are until they've been crossed. And then they want to tell people off and let people know and put people in their place and set them straight and all the things that we say, all the Negro proverbs that we say. Like, yeah, but you don't even have to get that stressed out if you would have understood what your boundaries were before and you were able to communicate that well. Oh, Dora L, what's up? It's been a minute since I've seen that name. Yeah, it's like, man, we have to find ways to set those boundaries for ourselves and then be able to articulate it in a way that's not going to cause harm. Now, if somebody ain't trying to hear what your boundaries are, that's a sign, that's a flag that's somebody that you need to put in a different type of relationship circle. So there's like several different ways that we can relate to people. And this is one of the things too that Black folks have not done a good job at identifying is how do we relate to people? Everybody ain't your family. Everybody ain't your cousin. Everybody don't love you. Just like we say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Right. But damn, we only say that when they hurt us. Like we never use any of that wisdom until it's something that harms us all the way. Right. Apply that stuff ahead of time and be a little bit more proactive. So what do we need to do? We need to identify. You have intimate relationships. This is circles of support. You have relationships that may be a little bit more loving and affirming. So affirming relationships. You have transactional relationships. These are people who are paid to be in your life. And you have relationships with associates where you're not necessarily good friends with them, but periodically you come in contact, you break bread or handle business or have some fun, and that's okay. But what do? We want to love everybody and bring everybody in. And then when they harm us or hurt us, then we want to get mad at everybody else when we really should be mad at ourselves.
Excellent. Dora Bell said toxicity can be habitual. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Fuller.
Yeah.
Whew, Mr. Fuller.
And understanding how white supremacy works doesn't mean denying it. But what I'm saying is we have gotten to a place of victim mindset collectively. And this is in our narratives. I know I've talked about memes on previous podcasts and stuff where we use that victimhood to stay stuck. And that's our identity. Our collective identity as Black folks is being victims of white supremacy. And the way that we've owned that narrative is by doing nothing but begging white folks to treat us better. That shit ain't gonna work. I'll just tell you right now, white folks treat Black folks good in general. But let one white person do something wrong, then it's all of them. It's all of them are hurting. It's like, man, we are some when we talk about trauma, we got some deep work to do. And it ain't just breathing techniques and stuff. That stuff's going to help us. But we have to really change our mindsets around how we interrelate and how we are interdependent on other people, including ourselves. Because, man, if you don't understand how racism works, it will keep you in this idea that you are an ultimate victim for a whole nother group's political interest, and you're not even aware of it. And they just keep running the same game.
Yeah. And that also goes back to what Dr. Claude, when people, Claude Anderson talks about, and I think now we see it even more because of economics, as Kai had mentioned earlier with inflation. It's been programmed to be a permanent underclass. And now you really start to, okay, you don't even have to say white. So the structural racism is just ingrained so much into the society. You don't have to do anything, but if it's economic, we are going to get it the worst. Period. If it's social, we're going to get it the worst. I mean, there's an article that came back out on NPR. They reran it to where if you live in majority urban cities, which are big cities, they have less trees, which means that you actually have worse health outcomes. These are things that have already been instituted for the last 100 years. They don't have to say it's going to affect Black people negatively. It's already been constructed that it's going to affect Black people negatively. So once we start to understand that, now we can say, okay, well, how do we protect ourselves, protect our families, but start to understand to provide solutions for these environments? And I think that discussions like this or anything, if somebody can get an idea, from Kai's talking about wellness or Brandon or us, we're just trying to figure out different ways to solve a problem. And there's different ways to skin a cat, and all ideas, like Mr. Fuller says, all ideas should be considered because we have not solved this problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
When you were talking about kind of where we are as a community, and it makes me think of Dr. Amos Wilson. And he, in this book, I should know the name, but it's not coming to me right now, but he talks about this whole concept of progress and making progress. And we as a community being happy about all the progress that's been made. And he's like, well, who controls progress? And who's to say this so-called progress that it can't go back to how it was before? And so I think of like the Reconstruction era, right? We were getting elected and there was interracial relationships, and what happened after that, right? So chaos. I think that we have to, when we look at the system of racism, white supremacy, and I don't know how else to express this to when I talk to members of our community, it's not about liking. It is not about white people liking us, getting in a relationship with us, marrying us. It is about power. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to understand that. There's so many books that are out. There's so many research articles that are out that all talk about it's a power dynamic. And, I'm on a committee. And on this committee, we were talking about racism, white supremacy. And I said, I think that we need to understand that racism is about power. And that's it. And once we understand that, then we can have a real conversation. It was a little quiet after that. And then the conversation then morphed into, finding people that, finding allies. And it just kind of morphed more into this emotional conversation. And it's not about, what I was trying to say to them, it's not about liking someone. It's about a group that has power, and they're not just going to hand it over to another group and say, okay, we're going to share this power with you. No, you're going to play by their rules because they want to maintain the control that they have. And I don't know how, kind of what to say to our community to help us understand that. I'm at a loss, because I think once we can understand that, then we can understand the economics. We can understand the breakup of the family. We can understand food deserts in our communities. Like all of that stuff hopefully will start to make sense if we can understand that this is all about power. Like what you said, Brandon, what Elon Musk did, that was a power move. Right. When we see Jeff Bezos, I think he bought the Wall Street Journal. That's a power. Right. These are power moves that people are making. It has nothing to do with liking someone. It's about power and dominance. And I'll get off my.
Elon Musk just did the same thing Claude Anderson's been talking about for the last 25 years. Right? You control, what does he say? You got to get your financial base.
Right.
Then you do the politics. Then you do the media, right? And then I forgot what the top level is, but that's the same thing Elon Musk is doing. If you talk, one thing we got to understand about power is shifted and moved through institutions.
Yeah.
And you can't fight institutions individually. You have to organize and build other institutions to compete. And this is why we don't have any power, because we don't have any institutions that are solely dependent on us. That's what we need to do. And yeah, Elon was not waiting on Jesus. That is correct. Because Elon is trying to figure out if there is a Jesus and how he can beat and control Jesus. That's what
Elon tried to get on the flight so he can see if he's on Mars. That's what Elon tried to do.
Yeah, it's like, man. And you know, the sad thing is,
that's a fact.
As much as religion has been a detriment to our community, I also think that it gave us some benefits. And I think when in the late 70s and into the 80s, religion in the Black community shifted. It went from gospel to prosperity. And when we went to prosperity, focusing on getting them dollar bills, the Reverend Ikes and stuff, boy, we went deep diving, and we lost a lot of the morals and things that kept our community. Literally, the religion was like the boundaries, since we're talking about boundaries, for the community. We have moral standards and expectations that came through Christianity, and also, if we want to extend it to the NOI, also through Islamic religions. But when we went to getting them dollar bills, man, I don't know what happened. Now we still have a lot of religious factors within our community, like people will get like cross tattoos and stuff like that, but we are not the same. We haven't been the same Christians that we were 50, 60 years ago that we are today. Well, and I don't think we ever will get back to it because it's so far gone.
Well, Brandon, if we went to prosperity, I need to know where the money at.
Well, we don't know, but you want to go there? You know, money is now. Aaron, answer this question. You know this. Money is an institution. When you make enough money, you have to figure out how to work your money.
Yeah,
right.
You have to move
put a little here, put a little there. Many of us never get that concept because we don't make enough income to know how to work the institution of money. So when we talk about Donald Trump doesn't pay taxes, well, hell, guess what? Brandon ain't trying to pay none either. And I'm doing everything in my world to not. And I'm trying to figure it out because I don't want to pay no taxes. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we don't think institutionally like that because we've always been the labor. We've always been the permanent underclass. And when we've been forced to be like that for so long, that's where our mentalities are. So I don't know, man. Let me be quiet.
No, it's good. And I think this is actually a perfect time if you want to pull up that article that I gave you about the Black homeownership rate. And we can go to this one. And this was in Time Magazine. This is a major publication. This is not the Shade Room. I didn't pull this from Neighborhood. I'm just letting y'all know that I'm being reputable tonight because my mama might be watching and I can't be pulling nothing out my butt. So
tell us about this article.
The Black home ownership gap is larger than it was 60 years ago. COVID-19 made it worse. So obviously, you know, when they say that when the United States, you know, gets a cold, you know, they say Black people get a flu or a fever. And so what the article specifically talking about is how 60 years ago, Black families had more ownership in homes in the United States. But since that time, it has started to decrease. Latino home ownership, I believe, is actually higher now. And the reason why home ownership is so important is that if anybody has shopped for a property in the last 5 years, one of the first things that they look at is something that's called I'm getting old right now, but it just popped in my brain. But great schools. You click on the schools, and people literally look at the number.
Yep.
And now this is something nobody wants to talk about. When people look at that number, and the number says 1, Brandon, what's the first thing they think?
Not moving there.
But who's associated with that school?
but let's say it like this: BIPOC people.
Now, y'all have to tell me, is that true or false? People have to tell me that that's true or false. It doesn't matter. Any city in America, you can look at Chicago, Hawaii, Netherlands. I don't care where you at. Wisconsin, Milwaukee. That's what people associated with.
Right.
So when people are looking to take their money when they have jobs to move into another economy, that's where they're putting their money into. If the school districts aren't good, they're not putting their money there. They're not adding to the tax base. So who ends up living in those areas? People that are low income and don't have a lot of wealth. Well, when the properties are depreciated and you don't have people in the area, in the community that are buying houses, you have investors coming in. And we're going to talk about this. So investors come in, they start to buy out the properties. And I just talked to a guy, he's a good friend of mine, he's a financial advisor, but he says in the next 40 years, the United States is going to be more of a multi-family apartment living space. You're not going to see a lot of single family homes because we keep on letting everybody in, but this is not the way it used to look 60 years ago.
Right.
Big cities, there are documentaries on this, that big cities are going to start packing people in as much as you can. So you're going to be sharing spaces. They've already started this, I think, in Seattle, Washington as well, to where it's like literally 3 homes that are connected and the people share the ownership and the property. The properties aren't no more than 1,000 square feet, but each person is paying $1,000 a month. Home ownership is so important because you can leverage home ownership. You can borrow against it to put a child through college, to start a business. Pass that wealth down to another family member, rent that property out and repeat the process. That's what I'm in the process of trying to help myself do and to teach other people how to do. And so when you see numbers like this, and also you think about in conjunction with the $15 an hour, Black people have 2 problems that we need to help solve. We don't have enough income because we need to continue to develop skills, but the skills will allow you to purchase a property. I harp on relationships so much because when we talk about this high value nonsense, okay, when we talk about some of that stuff that people love to talk about, if you are a couple and one person is making 80 and the other person is making 40, you have $120,000. If you're able to develop a healthy relationship, you might be able to afford to purchase a property in a decent neighborhood. This is another thing we have to understand. What is the incentive for people to stay in a neighborhood? This is not popular. That has terrible schools, that is crime ridden, and you're trying to raise children. Are you going to get out there? Are you going to get out there on the corner and be like the FOI and police it? You're probably not to.
No, you're going to be a coon and you're going to go live in the suburbs.
So, Brandon, if we don't have a base to police these neighborhoods ourselves, it is a survival tactic. And that is okay. And we need to stop. We beat up people for making positive decisions to improve their lives. I mean, think about being serious. Think about that.
No, I know.
We literally beat up people. There are so many women out there that are working. You need to tell me why you would incentivize for a female to live in a crime-infested community that we are not able to police. Does anybody have any answers to that? Because I don't. It doesn't make any sense. So I want to give everybody a tip. When you're out there, home ownership is an issue, but this is something you can think about. When you're purchasing a property, you stop thinking about buying a home. If you're purchasing one or you have one, as this is your home. This is a family home. This is a home that we're not going to sell, that we're going to keep in our portfolio. If you have one house, you have one home in your portfolio. That means your children can stay there, your mother can stay there, your aunt can stay there. Guess what? That's one home in the portfolio. Help those people save money to invest, and now those people can buy one. As a unit, in 10 years, each person, you guys might have 10 homes. You can start LLCs, you can do different things, but we have to start thinking about it not from a consumer standpoint, but just thinking about it from a broader standpoint of group economics. So, Brandon, if your mom and dad or own a property, that's one home that you guys have in the family. Have the conversation with your mother. We're not selling this property. It'll be a long-term rental, but guess what? If something happens and it's in a decent community, if something happens where my daughters need a place to stay, you have housing, and the housing is paid for. It is a safe haven. We got to stop thinking about it as just something that we can leverage ourselves. It has to go past. I'll just share. I have a long-term family member that he's been living in his mom's house since he was 2 years old. He's almost 70 now. But the blessing was that the mom never sold that house. And they were able to keep it. And he has a safety net, regardless of what he has going on in his life. There's a safety net to owning real estate. And it's not just money. We sell the homes, we give up the wealth, and then we look back 10, Kai, you notice, you look 10 years later, you're like, why did I do that?
Mhm.
Because if you're not disciplined and we're not teaching economics in the home, you're gonna blow that money in a week.
Yeah.
So it's just developing even that. Partnerships are so important, whether or not you guys want to get married, you want to be single. If you're single, find somebody you can trust. You know their finances. Y'all partner on a real estate deal together. There's different ways if you guys want to be red pill or blue pill. But guess what? Being a single entity in this economic environment is not going to work. And we see that as if Elon Musk just took all his $1 billion. I bet you, Brandon, I bet you any amount of money. If you got into the particulars of that deal, I bet you he had a partner in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, no, half of it's financed. Half the deal's financed. He didn't even use his own money, which is smart.
It sounds like somebody's making some smart decisions. Go ahead, Kai.
Yeah.
No, I agree with everything that you said. And right now, my husband and I, we're house hunting, and it's interesting time. And the thing is, what you're saying about us needing, we as a community needing to pull our resources together, it's true, because you're competing with people that are putting down cash.
Yep.
It's like, oh, this house is $300,000. Boom, I don't need a loan. We don't have to I'm just going to pay for it. That's what we as a community making $15 an hour are competing against. How can you survive in that?
Ooh, man.
People are just buying. And so I know there's this whole thing about this corporations or other folks that are buying up properties and renting them out. But there are also people that are just have the cash on hand and are purchasing these homes. And how are we going to compete with that by ourselves? $15 an hour, needing to make sure mom's okay, needing to make sure we're okay and the kids are okay, and trying to purchase a home, especially with these interest rates. So we're going to have to pull together and get real and have an honest conversation, and just stop with all the pettiness. Like right now, it's down to survival mode.
Yeah.
So Kai, I just wanted to add something. So I'm in mortgage banking, NMLS 239638. I am licensed. Thank you. But I wanted to add to this, to what you just said real quick. A lot of those people, depending on where you live, are coming from northern cities to where they own property. They cashed out those homes. They bought them 20 years ago. They bought it for $300,000. It's now worth $1 million. They did a home equity line of credit. They got $500,000 in cash. And guess where they're trying to park their money into? The stock market is kind of crazy right now. Don't know a lot about crypto. Bonds are a little bit too, interest rate is too low. Let me park that money in real estate. And that's that's literally what they're doing. Also, they work for these companies for all these years. They've got 401ks, they've got IRAs. They're looking to move the cash. The thing is that they bought the asset initially and they were patient. They didn't move every 2 or 3 years, and they were patient and they stayed in those communities. So these are things that we can solve. But the first thing is it's the mindset that you have to have a long-term view. And we always talk about this. So I trust me, I'm in the market too, looking at properties, and it ain't no fun. There's nothing fun about this at all as an individual, because you are competing literally with people that are buying 2 or 3 houses on a block.
Well, Ron and Kai, you are experts. These folks right here in the video are experts. Let's check out what the experts have to say about the black home ownership gap. I don't trust y'all. I need to go to the experts. Let's check out the experts right now. Wait a minute. She's white. Wait. What happened? Hold on.
Brandon, come on, man.
She's white. This is the video.
Buying a home is hard enough in today's competitive market. And if you're a Black American, it can be exponentially more difficult because racism. The homeownership gap between Black and white Americans has only widened since the days when racial discrimination in housing was legal. The difference in ownership today stands at over 30% in the U.S. The Fair Housing Act, which banned housing discrimination back in 1968, has done little to create a more equitable system and experience when it comes to buying a home. But to think that one law could make things better overnight is unrealistic, not when white Americans have had a 300-year financial head start. Now, on the surface, much of the gap in home ownership can be explained by factors like insufficient income and wealth, higher levels of debt, and low credit scores. But of course, at the root of those issues lies centuries of active and legal racism that made it incredibly difficult for Black Americans to become financially independent and be in a position to afford a home. Then there are, of course, discriminatory lending practices that continue to persist today. Black borrowers pay more for the same mortgage than white borrowers. Black home buyers are 2.5 times more likely to be rejected for a mortgage than white home buyers. Accusations of discriminatory appraisals are surfacing and steering the act of keeping potential Black home buyers out of certain white neighborhoods is still happening. Bottom line, the Black homeownership gap is very real. And now in the presence of the pandemic, with communities of color and minorities more severely impacted, the important work to create equity and combat racism has never been more urgent. And if you'd like to learn more about how to make an impact, I talked to 5 change makers across various disciplines, from academia to entrepreneurship, law, and real estate, to highlight their important work and advice for creating more equity. Check out that piece here on Next Advisor. I'm Farnoosh Torabi.
Thank you, Farnoosh. Okay.
And guess what? All that she says could be 100% true. It don't even matter. So this is where we get into the competition. All those things are factors. They don't matter, because guess what happens if you do nothing? You see that thing we posted earlier about $15 an hour? Yeah. You see what happened to the society? Brandon, we talked about this on other shows.
Yeah.
We don't know what an economy in this society right now would look like with what we call anarchy.
Right.
We don't know what that would look like. Let people not be able to purchase homes. Let people stop partnering. And think about inflation, to where your dollar is worth 9 to 10% less than what it was last year. So you think I'm making $100,000? No, you're not. You're making 90. All these different things that are popping in. You want to see what that society looks like. All those factors are good. This is the economic situation you have to compete in, which means we just have to get a little bit more creative on what we do. You might listen. I've seen this happen. I'm in banking. I've seen 5 people pull out money from IRAs, and they came up with $500,000 to buy a property in cash. I've seen that happen, Brendan, and it wasn't our economic group. You got to get creative. It's not a doomsday thing, but if you're at war, the only thing you can do is fight. You just might have to pick a different way of how to fight. You got to get more creative, but you cannot expect the government or anybody. No one's coming to save you. Nobody. So get your skills up, develop a plan. If you're not good with money, talk to somebody that's good with money. If you're not good with your money because you're having wellness issues, you can talk to Kai. If you're not good with your money because you got anxiety, you can talk to Brandon. And then once you get all that done, we can sit down and talk about the finances. But we can solve these problems, y'all. But it's not doomsday. But these systems, I am in banking. Everything she said is 1,000% right. But guess what? That doesn't mean that we cannot compete. It doesn't mean that. It just doesn't. Because then it's like we're wasting our breath. Why are we doing this? We can just go watch what's on now? Snowfall, what else? Snowfall, Bel Air, what's on? What else is on? Tommy Power. Let's just go watch Power. Why are we doing this?
Man, bro, man, I don't even know what you're talking about, bro, man. You know what I'm saying? All them big words, man. I don't even know what you're talking about, man. They ain't trying to give me no place to stay, bro. What you talking about? Man, now first of all, that video was misleading. I thought those people that were in the industry, let me talking. I was like, wait a minute.
You thought you was gonna get the 5 people.
Yeah, no.
Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely did. I was like, I'm gonna talk to these 5 experts. Now. You ain't talking to me, the owner of the article. Wow, that was interesting. Okay, Kai, any thoughts from you? We gotta wrap up soon.
Yeah. Let's get it.
Well, I think we have to pull together. That's the only way. There's strength in numbers. We don't have the wealth that other families or other individuals, I should say, have. So we have to pull together as a collective and yes, buying land, investing. That's the only way that we can kind of steer this ship in the right direction. But we have to, put down all the distractions that exist right now and all the fantasies that we have about where we actually are. We need to it's just time to get serious. I saw this article, and it was about the older adult population. I keep bringing them up because in our community, you know, we're working age, right? We can still go out and work and produce, but we have our older, our baby boomers who have different chronic conditions and are unable to still provide for themselves. And we are going to feel the effects of that. And so I'm seeing a lot of seniors who are feeling the crunch of the rental market. And they're also feeling the crunch of the healthcare bills, and also to put food on the table. And there's one video that I saw where this older gentleman, he was going to like senior, you know, when they have like a meal, like a lunch, what is it? They set up like lunches for seniors. It's like $2 that they pay, and they can get like a sandwich and some chips or something. And he was saying that he was having trouble coming up with the $2 to pay for his lunch because he has the medical bills and he has rent, and he's living off of Social Security. Right. You know, these are hard times that we're living in. And this only works if we pull together. You know, you just can't kind of be out there on your own, because what happens when people, you know, we're in an America where typically you can go get food, right? You can somehow find a way to get food. But what if you are unable to have access to food? Because look at the shelves. We're seeing even the supply chain is breaking down. So what happens in a society when we start seeing all these structural breakdowns, and we're already on the margins? So it only works if we start to pull together. And I don't want to be kind of like doom and gloom. It's just that there is a way out, but the way out is for us to pull together.
I'll share.
Ooh, man. Any final words from you, A.A. Ron?
Charity begins at home. And the first thing we have to start with is as individuals. You know, I love Mr. Fuller, and it's United Independent. So it's the first person you start with is yourself. You extend that down to your family. If you have a partner, you and your partner are talking about group economics within your own family. And then once you guys get established, whatever that looks like, you can then try to communicate some constructive ideas to others that want to listen. If they don't want to listen, there's nothing you can do. But literally, charity begins at home. You cannot clean up anything unless you clean up your own backyard first. So I just encourage people to take some of the ideas that we talked about, whether it's mental health, whether it's wellness, meditation, economics, credit, real estate. Just take some of these things and some of these ideas, because it's not doom and gloom, but we have to execute. We have to execute a little bit better because we don't have time not to.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, I don't know if the answer of the question was that easy to give, but we definitely need to make sure that we are focusing on our survival to the best of our ability, because one of my fears is that many of us ain't gonna make it in the next 20 years. And that's a scary thing. I don't want to be fatalistic as well, but the way things are moving, I don't see Black folks being serious about being serious, man. So with that, this is our first pilot episode of the third podcast. We're going to come back every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. Nobody ever talks about Mountain Time, but we love y'all in that time zone as well.
Who out there? I don't know who out there. Shout out to Mountain Time.
There we go. There we go. We love y'all too. But we're going to get out of here. We'll be back next week with some good quality content. Until then, be safe, be constructive, be well. Peace.